you very much for joining this presentation. So we will get our hands a little dirty, and I will actually show some of this integration that we built. So I'm István, and some of you might know that I have a short tenure with memoQ in the past. And like people ask me sometimes, like, what does BeLazy do? And I think that you will probably appreciate that I was under a lot of non-compete, and I went to work for a translation company, and I actually worked for a company for sale, and I was in operations. I was like trying to rebuild it. But when this was not a big company, and when one of the project managers was on vacation, I had to process those projects that came from their customer, basically copy-pasting from one system to another certain information. And this gave the idea of BeLazy, which has grown up much bigger than this. So what we are doing is we are building the intelligent, interconnected translation industry. This is basically what we'd like to do. And there is like a special emphasis on three things. That we think that the interconnection and like the drive of projects should be all metadata driven. So everything we do is very metadata oriented. And we also think that the supply chain is very important and very often forgotten. Just think about how hard it is to connect two memoQs. And finally, and this gives us like a lot of emphasis on the business management. And finally, there is continuous localization, which is a pain for many of the vendors, but sometimes also for the companies. It's doable, but sometimes it's not worth doing it because of the extra efforts. So we are always trying to build maps to make sense of the world. And this is actually the map that we built. And if you look at that, there is like content management systems over there. And we heard in the previous presentation about like iLangL, for example, EasyLink. There is CMS middleware. Files are in online file repositories. Task management systems like Jira or Asana or Monday are also bringing work in, but they are also meant to be here. They are also meant to be taking note of the existing work that goes in the life of an enterprise or a translation company as well. And then there are orchestrators that are having API connections to all sorts of things and making sure that you are actually able to process whatever Zendesk tickets or you name it. You can see like how the arrows are pointing to each other. And then there are business management systems, such as Plunet or XTRF or Protemos or some others, FlowFit. And they are normally integrated with CAD tools, memoQ. And what you will see here is that I actually call memoQ both a CAD tool, which is something that a company uses, memoQ, to process other like content. But there's also a translation management system, which is where an enterprise is taking all the connections of the incoming work and also making sure that everything is processed according to the rules. So this is what we are trying to do, enable this to flow without human interaction. Not an easy one. So right now we are going to talk only about memoQ. And here the question is what we do. And what we do is like we are able to pick up projects from memoQ server and put those into Plunet, XTRF, Protemos, and then process those projects in those systems and then deliver them. So basically what we find is that there are like some use cases which are very central to simple projects. You have to register a project, you have to assign a project, you have to deliver a project, which you can do in multiple systems. You can do that in memoQ, or you can do that in Plunet, and the two needs to be in sync. So there is a lot of synchronization that's traditionally done by people. And why would you want to start with memoQ? I mean, there is excellent, for example, Plunet, excellent integration with the system, but the point is that it doesn't pick up projects, for example, from the memoQ customer portal, which is a good customer portal. I actually like that better than the Plunet customer portal, just among ourselves. Then you've got content connectors, which is we heard about all the different WordPress and there are some others as well that are bringing content to be processed in memoQ using an excellent templates functionality. You also have the Trados and memoQ packages that you can import into the memoQ server. Everybody loves that. But the problem is that you cannot do by just like uploading it from XTRF or Plunet. And then finally, you also need to prepare the files. There is receivables, which is what I get from my customer. And there is payables, which are what I'm paying to the vendors. And the analysis may not even be the same because you pay for homogeneity, locked segments, all of these things. So it's like not exactly the same. And there is also slicing, which is like you can only do that in memoQ. You cannot do it from the other way around. So these are the things that we wanted to solve, and you will see how we solved it. And there is also the multilingual or single language vendor use case when you receive a project from your customer in memoQ. memoQ has a good API, but it has one big drawback. It's admin only. So like the web service API, I mean, people like Nintendo would never probably give access to the vendors to that API, but there must be a way. So people think about integrations like using APIs. We don't think that's the only way to go. So instead of using the memoQ APIs, what we are using is memoQ Web, which is basically something that has internal APIs that is communicating with front and back end. And we have, well, reverse engineered that. And this is what we can use, and that means that anybody who is a vendor or a linguist can use this integration and do its metadata-based project management. And there is also one thing that BeLazy does well, which is a layer on top of the business management. It is bundling, putting things together according to a daily project, putting like, you know, multilingual project together from the single languages, these kind of things. So after all of this, I would like to get to an actual demo. And in this demo, what we are going to see is I will create, like this is called the Ledger Link. This is actually something that came out for memoQ like 2 weeks ago only. And what I will do is I will create a project using the memoQ templates, which is very powerful. I really love the memoQ templates. I think that there is no other, like we actually integrate with 27 different systems and all of the mainstream TMSs, so memoQ is just one of them. And like, I must say that from the automation perspective, the memoQ templates have like a lot of power, more than the other ones. And so I'm going to create it into 2 languages, and I will want a workflow where there is translation and review too. Many people have this concern that in memoQ the workflows are not customizable. I mean, there is a lot that is possible, but sometimes you don't want 3 roles. You just want 1 or 2 or 3. And I'm going to use a translation and a review too, and create like a Plunet project here with 2 steps in it. And what I'm going to do is I am the vendor. So there is a connection already set up between the 2 systems. And the vendors that are called translator HU, translator ES, and reviewer 2 HU, reviewer ES are already assigned to some users in Plunet here. How many of you are familiar with Plunet? Just hands up, please. Like, okay, somewhat. All right. I mean, one of the problems is that for a demo, you always have to choose 2 systems. So I just didn't know how to best choose. So let's play this, if I know how to. Does it play? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the next one. 1 second. I'm reasonably good with technology, normally. Yeah, I lie about everything. So this is actually just looking at the template. So I have used advanced functionalities such as auto-assignment of the vendors. I have used, you can see them, translator HU and reviewer. I have used, after document import, a pre-translation, which is locking segments as well. And after that, an auto-assignment. So it's like pretty simple. I'm locking all the exact matches. In the Hungarian, I have translated 1 sentence earlier. In the Spanish, no. So the analysis is not going to be the same, obviously, because of the translation memory either. So now I'm going to create my project here from a template. And I'm just adding 2 files, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm going to import them, and memoQ will perfectly process it just as it should. You're probably familiar with this. If you're not using templates, then one takeaway, use templates. So here are the metadata. You see client, project, subject, domain. These are very important in memoQ, even more important for us because everything is like governed by the metadata. And then the project is being created. And what you can see here is that people were added there. It's already there. We didn't create reports here. And then it's going to be like automatically assigned. So this is BeLazy. What you see is that there is approvals pending, deliveries pending, so you can understand where the projects are. And that's the connection already configured. So the system picks up, but there is no analysis yet. So it needs to create the analysis. It was pre-configured, and now it's creating the analysis for both the vendors and the clients. We configured like what kind of options are being used. And now the analysis appeared, and now it's going into the delivery pending and being created right now in Plunet. You can see the word count, you can see actually the individual files under that with the links that you can click. So you see under the jobs that there is a role and there is a file to each of them, and we will see the delivery happening there. So in this demo, I'm not going to touch anything in Plunet. I'm only using Plunet to record the information in it. What you see is that the project was created, but I actually also can give you the direct link there, which is what I'm just copy-pasting there. And you can actually see here that some of the information, instruction mapping, was put in there. So some of the instructions like the project URL, the deadline is here, the languages were filled out, and all of a sudden you can see that the price lines are there already with the price. And then you can see that also in the other language. This one is the Hungarian, and you can see that here we've got context matches as well. And if you look at the jobs, you can also see that the vendors have a different word count simply because of what was in the TM and how I configured the analysis. So you see this, and now I'm going to go into translation mode, and I'm just going to open one link from here, but obviously the vendor got the Plunet job information, and the URL is there, as you will see. So I'm just logging into memoQ web. I could log into the normal desktop client as well, and I start translating. You see the locked segment over there, and I'm delivering the job now. And then I'm done with one file into Hungarian out of the two, okay? I can see that the vendors were mapped based on the assignment in memoQ into Plunet. Now I'm going to go and translate the Spanish, and I'm going to go in there using the link that was offered to me in Plunet as the job, like I am the linguist now, obviously. And I'm just going to translate a bit, probably incorrectly, and then I'll move forward and deliver this as well. So the first file in Spanish is done. Now I need to open the second file and complete it. This is just translation work. And now it's done. So what I see here is that the 3 files that have been delivered are indicated there in the list. But if I reload the page in Plunet, then I will also see that the Spanish has been delivered because both files have been delivered. Now I'm going to open up the remaining Hungarian, and I will translate correctly. So this is coming already from the TM. I just need to change a bit, and I'm going to deliver this translation as well. So now it should also show that it is delivered in the Hungarian. Now I need to have the reviewer work, and obviously the reviewer also got the information from Plunet with the link, which is probably different. And they need to work on the 2 files in the 2 languages in order to get it delivered. I don't think that the rest of the presentation is going to be shockingly surprising to you. So basically I just triggered it, but there was one missing. There was one vendor assignment missing because the reviewer to HU was not mapped to Plunet. So now I need to map it, and that's what I can see there. that there is a red flag, which is like, I need to click on a sign, I only need to do it once, and then it's going to be mapped to the username that way. And finally, when everything is done, the Plunet project is done, and I haven't done any work in Plunet whatsoever. If I wanted to select the vendor, I could. That is just a different directionality. And if I wanted to have the vendor come into Plunet and deliver manually from there, I could. So this is not a problem at all. And what you could see is that both the item and the job is delivered, and the project went into the delivered status. So you can see like when it was delivered, there's even a timestamp for that. And that's basically it. And if I have a little more time, maybe I can show you a little bit how this was configured. This is actually the configuration interface. So what you see is that this is the metadata-based approach, because you've got a rule and you've got exceptions, and you define which metadata, which combination of metadata defines what exceptions. So who is my customer? I can use the client field in memoQ, I can use the subject field in memoQ, I can put it into the description as part of the text, and so on and so forth. And there are things that in the business management system you need to set up, like specialization. And this is what governs the workflow. Where am I assigning from? Am I assigning from Plunet into memoQ or vice versa? Where can the linguist deliver? In Plunet or in memoQ? When to create a price, receivable, and what type of service am I providing? MTP, human translations, and so on. And when to create a price for my vendor. This is just like how we are working with the analysis lines. This impacts the price list. And then this is the languages, because sometimes you don't put, for example, English United States and English GB if you are translating from this language into others. I'm just mapping French here because that was missing. And then I've got actually the linguist mapping, which is one way here. And this is the reverse linguist mapping. So there are like two mappings depending on what you prefer to use. And this is the bundling part, which is basically putting together like multiple memoQ or other entries into one project. As a matter of fact, this is not Plunet. So this is now I'm working on the XTRF, but it's exactly the same, honestly. There is no difference between the different connectors that we built, with the exception of very little. Because, I mean, they're doing the same thing, after all. And this is the final one, which is the instruction mapping, which is like how I put, for example, the links into Plunet for the job or for the project managers. And that's pretty much it. But I have like one more idea here, maybe if time permits. Okay, so what does BeLazy work with? You can see the different APIs, so it's got anything into anything. So for example, we talked earlier about the connections to Jira and Monday. You can actually use a make.com and build it like very easily through the APIs, taking the projects from memoQ. And then we are working with TMSs, vendor portals, even emails, so any kind of project ingestion. And that's basically the rule. And then we need some kind of business management system. At the moment, out of the box, it's Plunet, XTRF, both smart and classic projects, and Protemos, and Quahil has built their integration. And then this is basically the Ledger Link, which is what I was showing. So let me just jump through that. And maybe if you're interested in CMS integrations with memoQ, which is actually a hot topic, I think, then there are some opportunities, even if memoQ does not have that connection. I don't know, may I say a word about crowding, which is actually a tool that I kind of like, because they've got a huge amount of 600 connectors. And with a technology like this, you can actually configure crowding, get an XLIF export from crowding, process the whole thing in memoQ, and then get the whole thing go back into crowding hopefully without a hiccup. And like this is one of the strong points that we see, that you can actually use best of breed from the different connections out there in the world. And you can just use through the XLIF. I mean, memoQ is excellent in the interoperability part. whatever tool you prefer to use as a provider. So if you would like to have a discussion, we can also talk about how is this different from the integration that Plunet built or that others have built. Happy to take questions, comments as well. And otherwise, I would like to thank you.